Sure, yeah.
Yeah, one was somewhere, so they needed me to come and help them.
Oh, shit. Go.
Start. Start.
Hello, Miss Carol. Can you hear us okay? Yeah, she can hear us. But you're muted, Miss Carol. John, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay, great. And let's just see. Can you see us okay? No, you cannot. Let's fix
Well, I
that.
can see some people.
I don't know.
Hello, Brett.
Hello there. How is everyone?
Very good. I am.
Good. All right. Brett, you can hear all right. Hello, Carol Lucas.
Hey, Chad, you guys
Yes,
want
ma'am.
to close the door to the PD?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
loud.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Okay, so police and fire come before treasurer.
Comes up with my name so they know.
I've got a couple bottles of water if anybody wants one.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and this is all Chris.
Just in, yeah.
Boston?
All right, let me make sure I run it here today.
So we have 5 counselors.
Yes, ma'am. And we are live.
Are we ready to go ahead?
I think so. I'm gonna work on Peter right now, that we can move forward with that.
And does anybody mind if I take my mask down to talk?
No,
No.
I do not.
Okay, I'm gonna call to order the Gerhart City Council. We are meeting early tonight because we have 2 pieces of business prior to the start of our regular business. And the first is a public hearing on the proposed Parks Master Plan draft. And so I'm going to open the public hearing. And and just give our hearings disclosure statement. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of the decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in making a decision, and those criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city and state land use standards that a person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to hear an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council, or to seek damages in circuit court due to a condition of approval.
Mark's on there. Mark's is on there.
Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence and testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearings body shall grant a request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing by continuance at a time date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence or testimony. Is there are there any conflicts of interest that any counselors need to declare, or ex parte contact or personal bias?
No conflict.
And Rita? Yes?
Brett Warren.
What? I have no conflict.
No conflict, thank you.
No conflict.
Does the audience have any challenges to the council's ability to make an impartial decision? Not hearing any, would staff go ahead and make their report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carol, you're still muted there. And I just wanted to introduce Carol Connell, our planner for the city of Deerheart. She's going to go ahead and take care of the synopsis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council, the city staff and the Planning Commission and the Parks Advisory Committee are delighted to have this off their plate and on yours now. It's been a pretty long process, a lot of meetings, hearings, a lot of amendments, a lot of input from those groups. And I don't see if George Van Humesen, who really was the key author of this 61-page document. He said he would be here if there were any questions, and I'm not sure if he's here, but anyway, he should be commended for a huge amount of the writing and research at the Historical Society and in other places, at the county courthouse. He spent a lot of hours on this. This is a hearing to consider this draft plan. And it was, your hearing tonight would be the second round of hearings. Planning Commission had 3, or I think it was 4 open hearings over the course of 5 months. And so this is a subsequent hearing on your part. The purpose of this document, well, the effects of this document will be to, number 1, amend the comprehensive plan by inserting this referenced document into the comprehensive plan and its background report. It will be amending the Deerheart zoning ordinance by particularly affecting the parks and open space zone. And it will be amending the subdivision ordinance all by cross references and some specifics that are outlined in my report, to make sure in the event of new development, new land divisions, the park plan is considered and its policies, as well as any zoning decisions. And right out the chute, it's really important to remember that this plan and its several pages of policies, which is really what the Planning Commission focused on, does only affect city park land. Okay, doesn't affect private property specifically. It could affect private property in the event of a new development or a land division where there was significant impact, if that new development was in the vicinity of a planned park or would have an impact on an existing park. But if it was adjoined by a park or a park facility or a potential park facility, then the park plan could be considered in that new development. The elements of this include, and I think, well, I'll just keep going. Secondly, we're adding the TSP, which is a transportation system plan. There are several maps of bike and pedestrian trails and all their details and their locations in the transportation plan. There's certainly a big part of our park and recreation facilities in Gerhardt. In fact, the committees kept realizing that what everybody liked to do most for recreation in Gerhardt is to walk. So we need to make sure that anything that happens that's affected by the park plan is also considered in the trails and bicycle routes that are in the transportation system plan. So that's one of the cross references that will be added. This plan also has a capital improvement program, and it's in section 4. And I think in a minute here, I'm going to just run through the table of contents so we can all agree that we know where these sections are. If we refer to them, we can easily find them. And the capital improvement plan both outlines your existing parks and what's in them. And it also tries to identify future park needs. And that's where it's important to understand that could be a section of this plan that could affect new development. If there's a planned park that we think would be a good one, there's a few mentioned, and it would be very useful for you to look at section 4 when we get there to see, if those are potentially future parks. The zoning ordinance amendments are only, again, going to be something we add to the parks and open space zone. And it's really summed up in brief that it would affect the Nicanicum Estuary's 50-foot riparian vegetation setback that's in that required by this plan, by the existing comprehensive plan, as it turns out, and on the estuary. And so the net effect is there's some city-owned parkland on the estuary around Wellington that would be subject to this 50-foot riparian vegetation setback. And the last, in summary, that I want to draw your attention to is that the advisory committee and the planning commission recommend, and it's in the plan, that the city council officially name Centennial Park, Trails End Park, Central City Park. Those are the 3 names that I can think of that apply to that park right now. And this would be an opportunity, not necessarily tonight, but in the near future, to give a name to that. What you don't see in the plan yet are photographs, which are in the works. The city had one of our planning commissioners, Don Frank, took several photographs, as did Angelina. And so we will be including some photographs to make it more interesting and to give a visual to this pretty lengthy document. And let's see, the photographs, and there is a map in there. Early stages, I was hoping to do a different kind of map that maybe was for trails and parks, trails, bike routes, and city parklands. That maybe was a more artistic kind of a map, or just something that was more substantive, but it needs to go on the GIS in order to have it really available to look at when you're looking at pieces of property and so on. It can be an overlay. And so rather than do that method, I had our GIS guy, the two of us spent hours coming up with the map that's in the document. It's section 6. And so I'm gonna, it's section 6, okay.
Page 25.
Yeah, yes. So that's the map for now. It's not finished. I'm sure there's some errors. I've found a few typos. And one thing I want to call your attention to that's premature, but very relevant to our trails and bicycle trails and walking trails are highway crossings. And they're shown with a star. These are very tentative, coming out of the ODOT Highway Improvement Plan that we're working on and is in its last lap towards completion and coming to the next level of review. And for instance, one of those, I don't know if you're looking at it, but I don't know if you want this detail, but there's one down there that was by the Sons of Norway that probably should be pushed up to G Street after some further discussions, but I didn't get back to Mark Scott, our GIS man, in time to change that one. I don't know if we want to go into a lot of detail on those because I fear you're going to be going through that plan with a fine-tooth comb with ODOT. And there's always a million questions about flashing lights and stoplights and so on and so forth that we don't need to review now. It's really just the beginning of where those connections will be important for the residents on the east side of the city to connect their bicycling and walking to the west side and over to the beach. Okay, the staff report has 5 pages of findings, and your analysis and decision on this tonight and in this hearing, and if it's continued, is to make sure you find, number 1, that the proposal complies with the comprehensive plan as it exists today. And the most obvious thing I can say about that, without reading any of these, because I'm not going to, is that the comprehensive plan has had a policy, I think, since the original one. If it wasn't 74, it was 94, to develop a parks master plan. So hallelujah. It took a long time, but here we are. The second policy or criterion for your approval is there a need? And yes, there's a need. And I don't think Oregon Parks and Rec would have funded this if we hadn't shown there was a need. But those findings are all there for your review, and I'm not going to go through them. Now, the testimony tonight, I'm looking at my staff report that we've received in writing, is the only one that's listed in the staff report is it's on page 1, public testimony, Roman numeral 3. And that's Eric Eisman's email of February 16th, 2022. where he recommended a change to page 10 regarding potential private park land discussion of his land. And in short, you have that from him. It starts with an email by Eric Eisman, his consultant. And and then there's a sheet that shows you how to amend it. But basically on that page 10, Mr. Moore is asking that you treat his parcel with the same brevity that the other potential private parks or potential park lands are stated right now. And then that you've had that for a while. So that was in the staff report. The others that we received, I think just 2 today, or not necessarily today, but one from Sharon Clark, representing herself, not the Planning Commission. And it's dated February 22nd. And one from Jill Garvey, a resident on Ocean Avenue. It's dated 2/27. And they both talk about the same topic. Sharon, and we can go into detail when we get further, but it's about scenic views and how they should be treated or discussed or emphasized or worded of the ocean, and tree cutting, again, on city-owned parkland. And just, it might help you to have that map, but most of our city parkland is in the dunes. So those are the comments that I wanted to make sure are in the record. That 2 of them arrived today that I'm aware of. Okay, and so now I'm going to grab the plan itself. And I had to give it an acronym for now because it's such a long, if you don't like the name, we could change it. But right now it's written as the Gearhart Parks and Open Space Master Plan. Let's see, that's what, it might even be something else. Recreation, I've used recreation elsewhere. I better find that. Okay, I will, the staff report, Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So we need to probably finalize that title, either Parks and Open Space Master Plan or Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Minor details. Staff will do that if you want. And I wanted to be sure and point out that this was funded by the Oregon State Parks Division. And a lot of the rest is all city staff time and volunteer time. The grant was small, it's $15,000. It's been about 2 years of work, and we might be a little bit over budget, but we're at the end and we're not very much, thanks to all the volunteer time. Okay, I'm gonna just do this, I think, to help make this easier for you. Maybe you don't need it, but the table of contents on page 2 starts with the introduction. And if we have to talk about finding pages, this would be the way to do it. You'll find that the page numbers are not in there yet. So I thought we could put them in there right now if you're comfortable with that. Section 2 is an inventory and assessment of existing parks and other relevant properties. And that's starting on page 5. And you'll find the Maury comment applies to section 2C in that section on page 9. And then the next section 3 are the policies. And as in all your planning documents, the policies are really the most important part of planning. And that's where, when you're reviewing or making a decision or reviewing a development of any kind, it's the policies that you rely on to help you make your decision. The Planning Commission spent a lot of nights on those policies. And they start on page 11. And the ones that that Sharon Klopfer brought up and that Jill Garvey referenced as well are policy 4C on page 12 and policy 19A and B on page 20. Section 4 is the existing parks capital improvement program. Section 5 is the proposed future parks and trails plan. It's in the form of a list, a table. It's not very pretty looking yet, but that's where the information is. Section 6 is the map that I referenced. Section 7 has a lot of background appendices, and it includes all the steps. And this is where George really went to town, writing about how this plan was developed, what its connection to the comprehensive plan is, a summary of all the public input, which, by the way, your new counselor, Austin Tomlinson, spent hours helping devise a way to track the public input on a map, and it's in the document. He spent a lot of his free time on it. Then there's demographic data, and somebody said, why do we need that? This looks like a lot of filler, but the answer is, when you start looking for funding to help you develop these parks, which is of course the number one value of this document, is you need a plan before you get funding, just like the transportation plan. But the demographic data is setting the time and place of when this plan was first written. And so that helps agencies and others figure out, well, what has changed, or, you know, where are we when you said you needed this, and where are we now? So it's just a data point, and it is in all parks plans that are funded by the state. Then there's the same kind of goes with these potential funding sources. There's a long list of agencies in here to help us find funding. And finally, historical notes. And one thing I would say about George is when all his research, for instance, on the Leslie Miller Park, there's always been debates about why it was named that and what the history is and how to give, that name and so on. He had all that, a lot of those notes in the body of the policies. And the Planning Commission decided it was too busy when you're looking at a policy and trying to make decisions, and there's all these historical notes. You kind of lose the impact of and the importance of the policies themselves. So some of those are now in this historical notes appendix, and a few of them are still in there in the appropriate place that they are referenced. And that's because in some cases, they help explain the intent of what the policy says and why they came to that conclusion. And it might be of value when the time comes to make a decision where you have a better feeling about what that policy was intended to do. So they're mainly in the appendix, the history part, and there's also a really great photo and a map, or the intent of what the policy is. For instance, the 10th Street access to the beach is a good one. And that, has been something that's been debated for decades. And to put some of that history in there kind of shows what the value of that whole situation. All right, so I think our plan is tonight is for me to stop talking and for you to get any public testimony for the hearing and for you to ask questions. And then you can decide what you want to do with changes, amendments, future hearings. We do have a deadline that was granted an extension by the state for the end of April. So we can't go much past that, but at any rate, we can talk about that when we get through it, finished with your questions and testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I do have one question. On some of the graphs, there appears to be missing information on the legends.
Are you talking about the capital improvement plans on page?
Specifically, I'm talking about page 40 on the top, population growth. And on page 43, growth in short-term rentals.
You know, every time I printed this or amended it, those pieces, those charts would move around. And for my own copy, I always managed to get them back so the title was above the graph. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about no description of what the legend is.
Ah. All right. Well, I'm not sure about that. Like, are you talking about figure 1.1 on page 40?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
On the bottom, the colored dashes. It doesn't
I see.
really describe which cities each one is.
Yeah. Okay. Did you get a colored version?
Yes.
Okay. So I will make a note right now that these need some definition or
They need
legend.
the city names probably need to be added.
1.5 and 1.6 as well.
Okay, we'll take a look at that and we'll clean that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That was actually brought to me by one of the other counselors. Okay. And I will just, because you mentioned it, I will just say then the parks capital improvement plan and the future proposed parks sections, section 4 and section 5, to me, they appear to be still a work in progress.
Yes, I would agree. The planning commission, well, the advisory committee didn't spend much time on that, but the staff was the one that felt it was important and we need it for our long range thinking. And the planning commission spent all their time on the policies. And I think they have felt the same, I don't know, like maybe not their job to for those two plans. So yeah, I think these need both a hard look by the city council. At least the proposed ones, and of course, any errors.
And we can have some discussion about this, but some of it may be fluid moving forward, like perhaps we will put it in as suggested and maybe a year from now come back when we know more about funding or other things. It's really meant to be something that could be updated a year or two later.
I agree. It's like all of your capital planning. It is fluid and different funds are received and you get something that you've earmarked that may not be exactly the way it's listed in here. And I don't see a problem with that because you'll have to approve it anyway.
Right.
And you might remember that we had a work session on this with you back in October, where the time schedule, we kind of put you on the spot and said, I'm looking at page 23, is this a long-term, a short, medium term, or a short-term goal for this proposed new park or whatever is on the list? And, you had to just kind of wing it as a group. You were with the planning commission as well. And that has not been fine-tuned. And I don't think there's any problem with it being a working document like your other utilities and streets and so on.
Thank you. We don't have an applicant's report, correct?
Just that, correct?
So are there any proponents who wish to speak at this time on the Parks and Open Space Recreation Master Plan? Okay, I see Michael Ward.
Yes,
So I'll put you up first if you'd like to speak.
yes, thank you. Yeah, this is Michael Hord, Hoard, and I'm at 13095 Princeton Court in Lake Oswego. And so my comment is the same comment I had on October 14th during the council. And that was just to reiterate the desire to keep the existing traffic patterns on the beach access, so that the numerous times in the document, it talks about keeping things as they are, or that there's not a intentional plan for improvement at this time. So I'm just advocating to keep the existing traffic patterns that we have now with regard to the beach access and photos and maps and things like that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Carol Lucas, I saw your name up, your hand up.
Yes, I have several things, Paulina.
State your name and address, please.
Carol Lucas, P.O. Box 2221 Gerhard. I live at 3rd and Ridge Path. And I'm speaking tonight mostly about concerns about the Ridge Path. I think that this plan, I looked over it and some of the other work that's been done, and I think it's amazing what people have put together and all the work that's been done. I really appreciate all the time people have put into this, but I do have some points that I want to bring up. And one is that nowhere in the plan could I find any reference to the concerns of those who live along the Ridge Path or next to the parks or the other paths. There was a lot of concern for the people using the path and for out-of-town visitors, and that they would be able to find the path and all of this. But nothing in there expressing any concern about the privacy, the safety, the other concerns that people living along and next to bordering these places may have. And I feel that's a real lack in the plan, and would like to see something like that added in. I, of course, find it very important because of my location and the experiences I've had. I know I've brought in a number of these up to the various city agencies in the past, so I won't go over all my list of bad experiences tonight. But I do feel that anything about the connecting the paths, that I hear a lot of talk about connecting the paths and making them all more easily, looped around and longer, and things could be very detrimental to those of us living on them, because it increases the traffic and increases the number of out-of-town day people that read about it on the internet or some such place and come to take a hike through the area. I would be much more inclined to keep our paths in town kind of not connected so that we can use them, but that they're not just attractions for long hikes. That's my first concern. Let's see. And I was wondering if there are extensions to be made and such, if the people that are located along the paths or next to these parks could be notified of these in a timely manner so they can bring things to you like I'm doing. I think some of the time this slips by and people don't even know because they're not paying attention to all the city, all the many things that you do. I also would like to be more specific in, let's see, where is it? In policy number 3.8, page 14, section D. I was wondering if that you could strike the non-motorized bicycles that's in that phrase. I feel that's a mistake. I know that several other places in your document, both 2.4.5 and the map and some other places, it's referred to as for foot traffic only. But even more important, it's very, very clearly stated in the original plat map of Gerhardt that it's a pathway or footpath to be used for foot travel only. And that's a direct quote, a pathway or footpath to be used for foot travel only. You can't get much more specific than that. It's just, and the bikes have done such damage to the path. They're so dangerous, both to the riders and to the people walking the paths, that I think it's really time that gets struck from the, I don't know how that got in there, but anyway. Was there, can I ask if that was that intentional for that to be in there, or was that a mistake that slipped by, or does anyone know on that at this point?
Are you asking, Mrs. Mayor, can I answer?
Please.
Item number D.
Yeah.
The non-motorized bicycles only was
Yeah.
intentionally added. And to clarify that bicycles, which, well, there you are, bicycles, which I think do go on the ridge path or have been historically, maybe it was not meant to be that way initially, but they do use the ridge path. And there was some discussion back and forth about whether they should use the ridge path. And the end result was, well, they will anyway, but we should at least prohibit motorized bicycles.
What can I do at this point to make sure that doesn't go through and get finalized? Because I think that's the biggest mistake that could ever be made concerning the ridge path, particularly as you connect it around to the other road and you've got the bike trail out there next to the golf course, and you're going to have people circulating around, zipping down the ridge path. And I've been almost mowed over a number of times, and I have seen so many wrecks or almost wrecks out on the street here. It's just, it's not a good situation.
And we're well aware of your concerns. I think you're in the right place now to be making your point, because the deciders are here listening to you.
Okay. Yeah, I will send you some pictures tomorrow of what the water did a couple days ago on the path. And that's basically from compact soil from the bikes going over the roots and packing down the soil. And anyway, okay. I'm very much against bikes on the path. I'm also pretty shocked to read in the plan that you want to make it 6 foot wide or 3 foot at the minimum as an exception. And I am really hoping that refers to like 6 foot between the trees and the brush on the side, and not 6 foot wide leveled promenade kind of thing, you know. This is a walking trail. This was the old Indian trail that was here before the town. I don't think we need to turn it into a freeway. That would be so totally out of character with what it is now. It would destroy a lot of the vegetation, the natural vegetation that grows along the edge of it. It gives it such character, and would just put us up against fences and such. And anyway, maybe I'm misinterpreting that, and maybe you only mean trees, but if you mean leveling it out and making it into a 6 foot wide roadway, I feel that's a big mistake. And I don't know how to get clarity on that, but
May I just try and quickly say,
yeah,
it was not the intent of either of the groups to do what you said, to widen it and pave it and make it a freeway. There is a 25-foot easement already there.
Yeah, I know that.
And so in some places, it gets too narrow, and other places it gets wide naturally, like of course at City Hall, where you have all these other uses and traffic and commercial and staff, government workers there. It gets wider, but I'm certain that it was never the intent to tell the city to go, you know, straighten it out and widen it. The intent is to have it look natural. And I'm sure the staff doesn't have the capability anyway to do what you and your worst imagination can picture it being.
Thank you, Carol. That's a relief. Perhaps that could be worded a little differently to clarify that. Yeah, that's a relief to know. Another concern is that, let's see, I only really had one more here. And that's that it's just a little rewrite on page 8, 2.A.5. And when I read that, it sounds to me, if I wasn't a person that was familiar with the Ridge Path and the history of that, I would think that the Ridge Path originated as an offshoot of the Oregon Coast Trail. And I think it needs to be rewritten something like, when the Oregon Coast Trail was originally created, a section of the Ridge Path was included in that trail. ODOT has since moved the Oregon Coast Trail to city streets. And likewise, I noticed in the staff report, it says that the trail is part of the Oregon Coast Trail. And then I think on the next line there's a real chance to kind of clarify what it is without going into a whole lot of history, as you explained, like you had too much history in it for a while. But you could say something like, historically, the Ridge Path, an old Indian trail around which the town was originally platted. And that would give people the context of what this is, not that it's just some trail that's been put in 1950 or something.
That's a great idea, that last one. And I meant to say at the opening that I need another cross-reference or two of the Oregon Coast Trail, at least on our map that we're writing. It should go on there. And it's in here as well. I just want to clarify, did you say page 8? I'm trying to.
Page
Page
8.
6.
Yeah, no wonder. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's all I have tonight. Just thank you all for all your work, and I, as a person living on the path, I really hope that something can be done to ensure our privacy and not just increase the traffic. It's already increased exponentially the last 5 years.
Carol, thank you so much for your testimony. It's very helpful and enlightening.
Thank you for your time. Goodbye now.
And Carol, I wanted to mention, I don't know if you've seen the full council agenda for tonight, but the mayor has already placed discussion of bikes on the Ridge Path as a new business item for tonight.
Oh, should I stick around then?
If you would like, sure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are there any other proponents who would like to speak at this time? I see Mike waving his hand.
So just real quickly, I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for all the work they did.
Just your name.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
your
It's
address, please.
Mike Cranston, 5130 Southwest Windsor Court, Portland, 97221. So I listened to a number of the meetings that the Planning Commission did reviewing the document that the Parks Committee put together. I just wanted to thank the Planning Commission for their leadership, for their interest, for taking the entire community's interests in Gerhardt and the tough decisions they made regarding this plan. It was comprehensive, it was collaborative, and it showed a lot of leadership. So I would endorse the plan the way it is, the way the Planning Commission delivered it, and hope it would be approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There were correspondence that came in. Will they be added, the written correspondence then?
Yes, to the record.
Okay.
Yes, it will. And it looks like you have Mr. George Van Humison with his hand.
Well, thank you. Okay, George, go ahead. George Van Humison.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this very short. As many of you know, I was very involved in the development of this plan, but have stayed out of the discussion over the past several months while it was before the Planning Commission. I want to say I support adoption of the plan. Generally, I also thank the Planning Commission and people who participated during the Planning Commission process for their help in moving it forward. I regrettably was not a part of the discussion, so didn't hear all the discussion about the issue of bikes on the Ridge Path. But I will say now that Carol Lucas has pointed out the issue of the change from the draft to allow non-motorized bicycles on the Ridge Path, I want to say I would very much agree with Ms. Lucas. The Ridge Path was platted and dedicated clearly, and I will also quote the language that's right in the plat that has been there since 1890, uninterrupted. So for 130 years, we hereby dedicate the streets 25 feet in width running through blocks 1 to 11 inclusive of said park to the public as a pathway or footpath to be used for foot travel only. I think it would be very unwise for the city to adopt a parks plan that suggests that even non-motorized bicycles are allowed there, even though I'm aware that people do it. And the issue of enforcement is a whole separate matter. But it's my view that the Ridge Path does not currently allow bicycles and should not be changed to allow it. As a user of the Ridge Path and as a bicycle rider, both of which I enjoy, I feel that the two are not compatible. So I would suggest that council modify this draft, although regrettably, as I said before, I didn't get to participate in all the planning commission's discussion about the point. But that's my opinion on that particular issue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, George.
George, may we get your address, please?
276 North Ocean.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak as a proponent?
Looks like you have Mr. Tom Keys.
Tom Tees?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Tom Teese, 292 Woodland Avenue, Deer Heart, Oregon. I would also like to say that it probably would not be a good idea to have bicycles on that. I realize it's been discussed that it's a hard thing for the police to control, but I'm thinking not so much chasing somebody else on a bike, but more of if a bike collides with a person and hurts them, it gives more meat to the problem. And being it is so skinny there, I think it'd probably be a good idea not to allow any bikes at all. That's it for me.
Thank you, Tom.
This time, no other hands. And I do not see any emails either for proponents.
We're going to move on then to opponents of the draft plan, the draft parks plan. Is there anyone who is in opposition? I can't see how many people are on the call. 21.
Yeah.
Something.
There are no hands up.
Thank you. And are there any persons wishing to make a neutral comment at this time? Any hands up?
Our city attorney's hand is up.
Yes, this is, I think it's really important that the demographic information in the plan reflects the most accurate census data. That, in my opinion, that having that accurate data, particularly around population, which was significantly above the Portland state estimates, will make the city more competitive as far as state grant dollars, and also that we'd want the most accurate information in our in any of our plans.
I agree, and I had that in my notes. Any other neutral comments?
Carol Lucas has her hand up again.
I shouldn't be neutral. I am wondering, is this a time or should I wait till a city meeting to add a few more details about the bikes?
I think it's on the agenda for later.
We are considering the development of an ordinance later in the agenda.
Okay.
But I think we've heard your wishes as far as bicycles on the Ridge Path.
You have. I can give you details as to why I have those opinions if you would like them.
Later in the meeting, that's our.
Yeah, that might be more appropriate at the other section of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
We have no rebuttal. And so at this time, we would either continue or close the public hearing and move on to deliberation. Is there a motion to continue the hearing?
There's a, sorry to interrupt. On the last page of the staff report is a recommendation option for some wording, if you're interested in that. Page 9. And 10.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
The second motion, which is to move to continue the subject hearing until blank because of, would that, if we were to propose that motion to move it to the next meeting, then we still have a public hearing process at that next meeting, and then we would go to deliberations to finalize the plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And then we could have our corrections on our graphs and everything like that.
Yes.
And I move we continue the subject hearing until, are we going to do March 29th or April?
I would do it on March 29th if we're going to continue the hearing. That's when we had slotted a work session.
Okay, at 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock would be good.
Okay. That's my motion.
So second.
Okay, there is a motion on the table to continue the hearing until March 29th, the date of our previously scheduled work session at 6 p.m. And that will be to make the incremental improvements that have been identified as missing so that we can deliberate with a more finalized document is the why.
Second that.
We've got a first and a second. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion carries
Okay.
unanimously.
May I ask Carol a couple of things about the staff report? In the back, I've got the letter from Iceman, but it's all cut off on the right-hand side. I cannot follow the sentence to its conclusion because I'm missing 12 endings on the sentences. It's like it was turned sideways. And that's on the cover page.
I'm sorry, what page are you on? I wasn't sure.
The Iceman letter. The
Oh,
parks
I
mess-
gotcha. Eric Eisman, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the draft. Okay. Go ahead now. Yeah. So,
The first page, I've got all the sentences cut off. I don't have the complete letter.
well, I'm sorry, I can't see what you have.
I'm working on that now here.
It's a printing error, and so staff can get that corrected. The margin's not set right.
Yeah, I don't, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing I've got is on page 8 on 1.2, the very last word, it goes biking and rolling. And I am not sure what rolling refers to.
Right, let me get where you are. Page 8, number 2, which one?
1.2.
1 point.
Yeah, and this is under LCD goal 13 or 12.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on page 8.
Staff report.
Yes,
Gotcha, hold on.
sorry for not being specific.
That's all right, there's a lot of paper here and a little tiny space. Item 1.1,
1.2,
1.2,
the
we're
very last word of 1.2.
okay, I see that already. Where street connections are not possible or desired, seek development of multi-use path connections between disconnected streets or public access ways to create a more connected and continuous transportation system for walking, biking, and
Rolling, and I'm at a loss for rolling.
yeah, that's a good one. And that's straight out of the comp plan. So I will correct that, but walking, I can guess, let's see, biking.
Could it be rollerblading?
I doubt if that was in the original comp plan.
So anyway, that's just a couple of things that I need so I can continue with this.
Yeah, I don't think it's an existing statement, so it's just a typo, but I will find out what that is.
Thank you. Okay.
And so we're going to deliberate on the 29th.
Yes. We'll have a public hearing and then we'll close it after we get the corrections made to the plan.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we have planning commission interviews. And I do want to point out that the appointment of a planning commissioner is under new business and will occur later on in the agenda. Chad, do you want to go ahead and go over the staff report for the planning commissioner's appointment?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, councilors. So this is the planning commissioner appointment. We have 3 applicants to replace Mr. Austin Tomlinson, who is now city councilor. As we have Chris Gluck, Judy Schechter, John Mestberg. We also have Jack Zimmerman, who is on that, and I think I've hit everybody that's on that list.
Mark Cranston.
Oh, excuse me, yes, Mr. Cranston, Mike is here.
Mike, sorry.
Applications were accepted through 4 p.m. on February 28th, and therefore, if any more were received, they were sent separately to the council for interview process. So the mayor shall nominate an applicant. The city council shall confirm the nominee by majority vote. If the city council fails to confirm the applicant, the mayor shall nominate another applicant. Term office for the member shall be 4 years, with terms expiring the 30th of the 4th year of appointment in accordance with the position that is being filled. This being a midterm vacancy, the seat will expire on 11/30/2022. So again, as laid out in the ordinance, the legal analysis dictates this process, and here we are to hold the interviews at your pleasure.
Right. So of the 5 candidates, 4 of them have already interviewed for this position. And I was present for those interviews. The 5th one, to my knowledge, has not interviewed for the planning commission. And for me personally, I think being asked these questions of the candidates once is probably sufficient. So I would recommend that we interview Mr. Zimmerman with these questions, and then I would just want some concurrence from the council to proceed that way, as opposed to asking these of all 5 candidates tonight.
Oh, I agree. We've already interviewed. We might as well save them the time and us the time.
I concur.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago that they were interviewed. So yeah. Let's proceed.
Actually, right, one was 2 years ago. Sorry?
And we also have Chris Gluck.
Yeah, this is Chris. I had previously not read the planning document. I have since read it, offered comments, and have a few additional thoughts for your consideration, if you wish to hear.
No, I think Chris is, no, that's in regards to planning commission. Oh. Chris Clark. He had been interviewed previously and he's got some more thoughts.
Dad, John Messberg also has a hand up.
May I speak now?
Who was that? Sorry.
That was John Messberg.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment very briefly that because the last meeting on this, or the last opportunity to interview for this, the time was shifted. I was on a plane during the interview and I submitted my responses on paper. I'm perfectly comfortable if those responses are considered appropriate for this meeting as well. But if, given the fact that I wasn't actually interviewed in person, there'd be an appropriate time for me to discuss any aspect of my paper responses or anything else you'd like to know about me, I'd be happy to stay on. Your call, obviously.
Thank you. We did read your responses when we put you through our interview process, and I'm satisfied with your statements as we read them.
Thank you.
Is Jack Zimmerman on the call then? How do we know?
I'm going to double check here.
Do not see his name. There is one caller ending 450.
No, that's not Jack's number.
I don't see him here on our list, on this device either.
Okay. Mr. Gluck, if you would like a few minutes to update us on your thoughts on the comprehensive plan. Our first question is, do you believe the comprehensive plan as written is still applicable? Does it need to be changed? And if so, how?
Well, thank you for giving me a second opportunity after having read the plan. I do believe it's still applicable, but as with most planning documents, I believe they should be routinely reviewed for applicability given the most recent current events. Saying that, in the military, we had what is called a battle rhythm. In the civil world, I'd call that a cyclical review of all major planning documents, both long and short-term reviews. So throughout the year, for example, in the military, we would review certain portions of the plan to ensure the entire plan is reviewed annually. For example, the first goal of the plan could be reviewed the first quarter, the second goal, etc. And then annually, I would submit that there might be benefit to conducting a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, with the intent to set the stage for the next cyclical rhythm as to which portions would be reviewed first quarter, second quarter, etc. That's kind of what I would offer out there for your consideration. With respect to the other four questions, the only comment I have is on question 3, and this probably comes from my management engineering experience. The community plan has goals. Now, for me, when I see goals, that translates to, are there measurable objectives to ensure the goals are being met? I would just offer that for your consideration, that perhaps there may be benefit in creating some measurable objectives for the city of Gearhart to ensure they're meeting their goals. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you very much. Okay, with Mr. Zimmerman not available, then I think we're going to move on at this time. Let me put this back here someplace. Back here. Okay, we're going to move on to, I'm going to ask again if there's a declaration of any conflict of interest for the rest of our agenda from any of the counselors.
No.
None here.
No conflict.
And we have minutes in front of us from the February 2nd, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes from the February 2nd meeting.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, we have the Planning Commission report. Any comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The Planning Commission approved the conditional use permit for the playground equipment, but the conditional use was approved with conditions. What conditions were they?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I don't have that right in front of me. I'll get that to you by the end of this meeting here.
Thank you.
Just grab that.
Thank you.
I don't think I brought that either, sorry.
I'll find it.
We're going to move on to the mayor's report. I do want to report that I had a successful mayor's coffee last Friday. We had a lot of fun and had a lot of good conversation. The rest of my remarks are prepared and I'm just going to read them. My grandmother emigrated from the Ukraine territory of Russia about 100 years ago. And now my heart lies with the Ukrainian people as they fight to maintain their democracy. As I listened to the State of the Union last evening, I was reflecting on all that we've accomplished as a city in the past year. We've completed a new personnel policy manual and welcomed 3 new staff and are on track to hire 2 more very soon to complete our team after the retirement of 4 outstanding long-serving individuals who served our city for many years. We've weathered the pandemic together, and in the process, we've weathered unprecedented growth in our quiet town and a most quiet downtown area that too seems to be coming more alive again as we welcome the Auroras to the Pacific Way Cafe. We have increased transparency through the use of the Gearhart blog, the City of Gearhart website, and albeit just a draft, a set of objectives and goals, measurable. We are nearing completion of the Master Parks Plan, and my thanks go out to all who have contributed to this effort so far. And we have spent much time this past year considering a new fire station or fire police station for the city. And I hope you will all join me on May 17th in voting yes for measure 4213. Counselors' reports. Rita, do you want to go first?
Well, yes, I do. I was able to participate in the interview process for the hiring of a new safety officer for the fire station. And I was very impressed with the whole process. And I learned so much that the layperson doesn't usually know. And it was a really good experience. And I want to thank our fire chief for how he arranged that whole process. So that was fun and good. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And Brent?
Sure. I attended a Zoom League of Oregon Cities meeting, heard about legislative updates, a lot of them still pertaining to marijuana. Participated with the mayor's coffee, had a great, fairly sunny afternoon to spend with lots of citizens of Gerhart. And then participated with the fire station open house that our great volunteers hosted for us. And that's it.
Counselor Kerr?
I only have to report that I met with the mayor and talked city business, and that's all I have.
And Counselor Tomlinson?
I also went to the fire station open house with my family and got to meet some of the firefighters and show my 3-month-old son the fire trucks and ate a burger. And then on Monday, I also spent the couple hours with Chad, kind of going over the city business. To make a better understanding for myself of what goes on. And yeah, it was a good afternoon.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to move on to city officer reports, and these came out today. You have the police department report and the monthly incidents. And Chief Como, you're there. Do you have a verbal report?
I do. And if I can share my screen, I will go through the report.
Yeah, so thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, Chief, give it a whirl.
Perfect. Hopefully you guys can all see that on the screen.
Yep.
February data report. We ended February 2022 on call 110, which made 42 total calls for the month. February 2021, which just a reminder was a record year, ended on call 78. So we are 32 ahead of last year's totals by the end of February. Those 42 calls for last month are as follows: 22 inside the city, 15 in the district. We sent out aid 5 times. 4 was to Seaside, once for water rescue, 3 for building or fire alarm activations. And 1 time was to Elsie for a structure fire that they had. We received aid 7 times, and I'll kind of elaborate in each one of these here in a moment. One was they were all from Seaside, all 7 of them. One was 3148 for their ladder truck. 4 of them was during winter fire school and 2 during coverage. We had low response for multiple calls at one time. The first call I want to quick talk about, as you guys can see on your screen, was aid from Seaside. It was for a person that was stuck in a bucket truck. The call originally went to Seaside, so Station 31 was dispatched to the incident at a supposed address in Seaside. When they did not have that address or did not find the bucket truck at that address, they started Google searching and found out that we had that address. So we were toned out for it. Seaside was already geared up and in their tiller, which is a tractor drawn aerial ladder truck. So we had 3148 continue to our incident. It is safest to rescue victims from these types of calls with this specialized fire apparatus. It's not safe for us to put ground ladders up near power lines or ground ladder up against a bucket truck that's wobbling and moving back and forth. Our command vehicle was on scene before Seaside was, and we parked it right in front. You can see that kind of in the back of the picture over there. Our engine was right behind 3148 Seaside's tiller to not block them. Ensuring a big enough space for placement is crucial when dealing with these types of apparatus. We provided incident command and staging for 3148, while Seaside firefighters rescued the person from the bucket truck, who had been stuck up there for 3 hours. After checking the patient out, he had no injuries. He didn't need to be transported to the hospital, and they called their company to repair and remove the bucket truck. We're thankful Seaside has this specialized ladder truck that costed them over $1 million and has a station long enough to house it. The auto mutual aid system we have in place is extremely useful. And when we have Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office or ISO reviews come up, they're surprised at how well us as a county operates and kind of keeps us as operating as one countywide department and ensures low insurance premiums for you guys. Continuing with the other calls that we received aid on, we had about 8 to 9 of our firefighters down in Salem during what we call winter fire school. And since a big group of them was our core responders, I put Seaside on automatic tone out. Whether we had people here or not, I just asked that they get toned out for every call we had for that weekend, just to make sure that our district was covered and taken care of. As a reminder, we went to Seaside 79 times last year, so I just kind of count it as cashing in on all the times that we went over there to help them out. 2 of the calls was just essentially it's low response, but I believe as we had 2 to 3 calls going on at one time, we're just spread too thin. During our open house last month, it went extremely well. We were able to give lots of people tours of our station, show them some of our equipment, and just be open for the community. Scott Adams, public information officer from Banks, showed up. He made the trip on his own. He wasn't paid or anything, and Banks didn't benefit. If anything, it was Banks' loss as they lost a firefighter able to respond for during that period of time while he was here. Guy's a great wealth of knowledge, taught me a lot, and some of our firefighters a bunch of just what he does, how Banks operates, and was a really good support to be there during the open house. The interview test night, that was last Friday, went really, really well, as Councilor Fackrell mentioned a little bit ago. Our training officer will be James Hutchinson. He has been serving as interim since April of last year, getting us through my interview process, getting me to the full-time position. And he was the one who performed on top during the interview test night for that. And he will be the permanent training officer moving forward for us. Water rescue program update. We're moving forward with that, getting certifications and getting training taken care of underway. I wanted to remind everybody that our water rescue program is in memorial of a firefighter that lost his life years and years ago in a water rescue call. And had we had the equipment and training back then, I hope and beg to differ that he would still be here with us today. So in everybody's on the water rescue team with us, they started this program in memorial of him, and wanted you guys to all know that. Last couple of things, radio dispatch and communications, they repaired one of the frequencies for a tactical channel out in the district area, not our district, it's actually Napa's district, and other equipment is on ordered. Some of it has been ordered for a couple of months. With everything going on, we will get the equipment when we get it, I guess, and they'll be able to make that work. We do have 2 grants out. I forgot to report last month. One's an AFG grant to replace our 27-year-old water tender, get that up to snuff and up to speed, working for us. And a SAFER grant I was put out. The SAFER grant, I believe, is a little over $2 million for recruit retention and some PPE mixed in there to try to get more volunteers and provide better PPE for us. If there is no other questions, that is all I got for you guys.
That was a grant they applied for or got? The SAFER grant.
The grants, both of them are just applied and pending. None of them have even been decided or voted on. I don't even think they've been through the computer kickout period yet.
Okay.
Chief, I had a question about the address mix-up with Seaside and Gerhardt. Could that have been zip code related?
You know, I had that exact same question. I can't confirm that. There was a couple people that thought maybe. The people on the incident wasn't very well English speaking. So that had something to do with it, whether they knew where they were at, Seaside or Gerhardt. If we had our own zip code, could that have benefited? That probability. Yeah, there's some there, but I can't confirm that.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chief, I had a question about the water aid rescue.
Yes, sir.
Was that, that was on the Seaside side, right?
Yeah, so it came in as somebody reported to be stuck on that island just right past the mouth in the estuary of the river between us and Seaside.
Okay.
They went from their side and we came from our side because we didn't know where the victim or the person was at all. We attempted to get eyes on it, and while we were there, surfer, our paddleboarder came in, and we think that's who it was called upon. It was a bystander that called out for it. So neither of us needed to get in the water to attempt the rescue, but it was for a joint one. And when those calls happen in between, dispatch will frequently just call us both out.
Chief, could you convey my congratulations to Mr. Hutchinson? He was clearly the best candidate, and I was kind of hard on him, but he pulled through, so congratulate him for me.
I will do so, and I'm glad the group was as hard on him. It was designed around that, and I'm glad he performed as well as he did.
He did, so thank you.
Fantastic addition to the team, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, he is.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Of course, thank you guys.
And moving on, Justine, do you have a treasurer's report?
I do. So in the revenues, the city has received their annual franchise fee from CenturyLink. And the final outstanding reimbursement for the conflagration expenses for the Patton Meadow fire. In expenses, the debt service fund payments in Fund 20 for both water bonds 2015 and 2021 have been paid. And so we had to add new line items in the expenditures for Fund 20, principal and interest for the 2021 bonds, which were the 2011 bonds refinanced. So they now have a new line item on there as we complete out the 2021 bonds. Budgeting season has started, and we'll start preparing for the annual budget cycle. We are currently looking for budget committee members. We've advertised on our blog and put a public notice in the local newspaper. Anyone interested can get an application online or are on the website or contact the office. And applications are due by April 29th. We'd love to have a complete budget committee. The League of Oregon Cities have shared their 2002 revenue report with estimates, and it's a great document to look through. It talks about projections for marijuana, highway liquor. They published this, and it's easy layman term at a glance if you're interested in those types of revenues. I'm working with our auditors on understanding new requirements that were created by Senate Bill 866 in regards to third-party building officials and financial reporting. The building fund may need to be pulled out of the general fund and established a special revenue fund. And it definitely will have some very specific audit requirements coming up. So hopefully we'll have that worked out by the time we get our budget together. The city currently has an active RFP out for the building official. The original timeline needed to be extended, so we had to put out a legal notice. and revised timelines. It currently closes March 10th, and our goal would be to have recommendations to hire to city council on April 6th. In other finance news, kind of like Councilor Warren had mentioned, impacts on the marijuana tax. So marijuana tax in Oregon includes a 17% point of sale state tax, plus our local 3% tax. Until the end of 2020, cities and counties each received 10% of net revenues from that 17%. Under Measure 110, cities and counties will now have to split a capped amount of $9 million annually, and it's not put in any growth, so it's capped at the 9 million. The loss to local governments in the current biennium due to Measure 110 is estimated to be about $50 million, which is about a 73% reduction. And the League of Oregon Cities has been very active in trying to get information out to cities. There's Senate Bill 1506, which is a bill that would allow cities to ask voters to increase their local marijuana tax to a new maximum of 10%, up from the 3%. So that's out there. Senate Bill 1587 is a bill that would backfill the $50 million city and counties are projected to lose over the current biennium. And Senate Bill 1587 is currently stuck in the Ways and Means, and the League of Cities doesn't expect it to move. So they are urging state senators and representatives to support a one-time $50 million backfill of local revenue losses in the end of session Christmas tree bill. So that's out there happening if you hear about it. Later in the meeting, we'll be hearing from one of our auditors from Acuity regarding last year's audit. They've been hosting weekly audit webinars that have been very, very beneficial. And if any council members might be interested in attending those, I'd be interested in sharing that contact information. They're a half an hour on Fridays, and they pick different topics and do a very organized, concise job of slides and getting things out there that are very informational. So that's my report.
Great. Any questions for the treasurer? And Mr. Watts, do you have a report for us?
Well, I don't want to jinx us by saying that we've had a very quiet month. We have. I had one court appearance to discuss that kind of very unique legal situation where we had a judicial decision that couldn't be implemented by the county. But other than that, we've managed to stay out of court, which is always good news, and fingers crossed that continues.
All right, thank you. And Chad, you have a report in the packet. Any highlights?
Just a few things, Madam Mayor. Just again, we have a meeting tomorrow night, Thursday, March 3rd, 6 p.m. to consider a possible employment of a new police officer to replace retired Sergeant Vince Yokoyama. So that's at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Just a couple things. We have the work session situated for March 29th. It was down for 6:30. We'll change that to 6 p.m. And then we'll set that agenda. Upcoming Saturday, April 23rd, 9 to 11, we're doing the emergency cash day. So I'm encouraging anybody who would like to store some goods from their home for an emergency up in the hills with us, to please come and see us on Saturday, April 23rd. Visit the website to get more information about how you can participate in that. And then just lastly, grants and wise, we've been extremely busy over the last year at least, writing grants. Very much, we've been searching for grants that might help us with the fire station. Still a little elusive, although there are some small grants that we're looking at. But I would like to say that the city, over the last since 2004 is ranked, written over $713,000 in grants for the city. A lot of those were fire equipment and planning different issues, such as the Parks Master Plan that we just went through, and the planning that we're doing with ODOT, and that is a little separate. But these are grants that we wrote, we received money, and we were able to go ahead and pay for various things. Hazard mitigation planning, Department of Agriculture, worked with them, working with we just received a small grant for some park things. So it's all working out really well. We have currently in progress 1.9 million in grants that we have outstanding, and we've got 3 or 4 that we're currently writing right now. So we're doing our best for the city in regards to provide revenues for some of these projects.
So the 1.9 is what we've requested through all these different grants.
Correct, and one of them is fairly large. It has to do with the, potentially sharing an employee with the city of Cannon Beach's fire department to help with recruitment and retention. And that's a larger one that's out there, but yes.
Okay.
Other than that, at this point, I don't have anything else to update.
Are there any questions for Chad at this time by the council? So we're going to move on then to our correspondence. And I just want to go through them and make sure that we get them in the right place. So we've got one from Sharon Klopper, which has to do with the Master Parks Plan. And then the next one is from the American Red Cross. And it is a proclamation, which is on the back. And Chad, do you want to go ahead and read that Red Cross Month Proclamation 2022?
Certainly. Madam Mayor and Council, Red Cross Month Proclamation 2022. Whereas in times of crisis, people in Deerheart come together and care for one another. This humanitarian spirit is part of the foundation of our community and is exemplified by the American Red Cross Cascades region volunteers and donors. And whereas in 1881, Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross, turning her steadfast dedication for helping others into a bold mission of preventing and alleviating people's suffering. Today, more than 140 years later, we honor the kindness and generosity of Red Cross volunteers here in Deerheart and continue to carry out Clara's life-saving legacy. They join the millions of people across the U.S. who volunteer, give blood, donate financially, or learn vital life-preserving skills through the Red Cross. And whereas the Cascade region serving Oregon and Southwest Washington, the contributions of more than 2,500 local Red Cross volunteers give hope to the most vulnerable in their darkest hours. The Red Cross is so by providing more than 1,600 emergency overnight shelter stays, along with food, comfort for families devastated by more than 680 local disasters like home fires. Through the generosity of those donating, more than 182,000 units of essential blood for accident and burn victims, heart surgery and organ transplant patients, and those receiving treatment for leukemia, cancer, or sickle cell disease. Or by supporting service members and veterans on an average of 8 times a day, along with their families and caregivers through unique challenges of military life. And by helping to save the lives of others with first aid, CPR, and other skills, or delivering international humanitarian aid. And whereas their work to prevent and alleviate human suffering is vital to the strengthening of our community resilience, we dedicate this month of March to all who continue to advance the noble legacy of American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, who lives by her words, "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it." We ask others to join in this commitment to give back in our community. Now, therefore, I'm Mayor Plank of Deerheart, by virtue of the authority vested in the laws of Deerheart, Oregon, do hereby proclaim March 22 Red Cross Month. I'll let you actually read that next time here.
Well, why don't I finish it? I encourage all citizens of Deerheart to reach out and support its humanitarian mission.
So we just need a motion, by council forward to make the proclamation, I think, unless or a consensus.
Is there a motion to?
I'll make a motion.
Proclamation?
Shall we make the Red Cross Month Proclamation 2022?
So second.
I'll second that.
Grant, you're third again,
Oh,
sorry.
third again. Okay, I'm always.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous. So then we just want to point out, we have the North Coast Food Web. And In a Landscape, classical music in the wild.
This is zip code ones there too.
Is that in the next section?
No, that,
It's on the back side of the shared zip code.
Oh,
Both of them are.
after the proclamation.
right, right. And 2 letters on the shared zip code, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll keep those in our file for when we need to
Yes, sir.
have support. The next section I have is the late correspondence that we received, and we may have gone over that already. Jill Garvey, Mark Webb, Gregoire, Stuart Schultz, and those will be put in the appropriate place in the public hearing packet. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. And finally, one kudos. This was from Spencer Kandari. Kudos to the staff when they went to help with a water leak. Oh, present company included. And next we have visitor Corey Surratt of Acuity, going to talk to us about our audits.
Okay, so we'll wait for her to come up.
Fellow alumni from Eastern Oregon University. Gotta get that in.
Thanks, Justine. We actually have 2 Eastern alums in our office. So Justine's in good company when we're visiting. And we just hired a tax intern and we're trying to talk her into being an Eastern student as well. I am Corey from Acuity, and I'm happy to present the results of the audit for June 30th, 2021. For the council, your recommendation letter from us this year was, it had several items, but I want to make the comment that things are much better than they were last time we visited, and things are moving in the right direction. So even though we still had some things to note, most of them I have no doubt we won't see again when we come back this summer to do the 22 audit. But also I never want to make light of an audit finding, but they're also much less concerning in what we're seeing. So I'll touch on a couple of them. You have segregation of duties, which is just by nature the way it's going to be, with very few people doing all of the accounting work. And that's in your letter to remind you as a city council of the importance of your role in reviewing and asking questions and being alert, which you do a very good job of. It's just our annual reminder to you. And then we had, currently the city is using QuickBooks to do their bookkeeping work. And because of the limitations of QuickBooks, you're using multiple other systems for each of the other major revenue streams. The courts uses a spreadsheet that's in a ledger that's in a spreadsheet. You use a separate utility billing program that's a really good utility billing program, but it's separate from QuickBooks. And then you have a TRT collection that is outside of QuickBooks as well. And so one of the things when I first got to meet with Justine and help her develop some of her procedures and stuff, answer questions and stuff as she got settled into the job, was how to best reconcile each of those. And so when we came to visit for audit, the only one that hadn't been updated yet, so that the general ledger, meaning QuickBooks, and the outside collection and reporting system for TRT was the only one that they weren't being reconciled monthly. And from an internal control standpoint and from an accuracy standpoint, it's something that we feel is pretty important to develop a process. The TRT web-based system was it's something that we could spend a little more time on, making sure that it was a little hard to figure out what's the best way to make sure that happens. But we did highlight it as one of the major deficiencies because we really do want to see that resolved. And then we had a couple of things that were missing sign-offs or missing invoice. It was paid from a quote instead of an invoice. So things that are very easy to clean up and things that I know Justine is committed to not having again this fiscal year. And then there was several budget over expenditures. And again, I don't think we'll see that. This Friday's webinar is actually about budget changes. And so the timing of your changeover in staff last year was really what caused this excess. It was just there wasn't enough time to get everything caught up and cleaned up and still have you as a council adopt any budget changes prior to year end. And so that was just a timing thing. And then we did a little education while we were there this fall on public contracting. And there was one non-compliance. Oregon has us look at things and it's black or white. You're either in compliance or you're not. And so there was one that was not in compliance, but again, we did lots of education. And so I feel like that one's going to be remedied as well. And then the last, this ties back to the TRT, but we would just love for the city to consider using a true general ledger program instead of QuickBooks, migrating out of QuickBooks for lots of reasons. But one of those is that if you're using a true general ledger software, all of those outside systems that are feeding into your QuickBooks currently can be, there's lots of softwares out there that you can do all of those from the same software. And so it eliminates some headache and some inefficiencies for staff, but it also gives you a better solution for accounting. It gives you a better solution for budgeting. And so we've already talked to Justine about if that's something you can entertain and where to make phone calls to see cost, because it does. Part of the reason lots of people use QuickBooks is it's cheap. And so there's a benefit there, and accounting software is not cheap. But at this point, it might be, you guys have gotten to the point where you've got enough different revenue streams and enough staff and enough payroll across different funds and departments that it would be something to consider. So we'd like you as the city council to consider that. And then, when March of 2020, when the entire world closed down, we didn't really know what was going to happen, especially in municipal budgets. It was very interesting to say, oh my gosh, so we finished, June 30 of 2020 and everybody kind of just held steady. But what we've seen is that 2021 was actually a decent fiscal year. There were enough grants floating around out there and other things. So for Gerhardt, the general fund had a positive change of $153,000. That is on the modified cash basis, but that's good to see. Overall, your governmental funds increased just over $200,000 for the fiscal year. And so you ended the year, the general fund had just over $400,000 as carryover balances. And if we look at the water fund, one of the things I love to look at in the financials is the cash flows, because it tells us were your operations providing cash or were they using cash. So operations provided $57,000 worth of cash, and most of that went to transfers out to the reserve fund. So the water fund overall changed a negative $60,000 in cash, but you were able to transfer out $120,000. So overall, the water fund looks like it's right about where it's supposed to be as far as not operating in the red from operations and able to move stuff to the reserve fund for future needs, we know there always are when it comes to water systems. So Justine gets kudos for being very ready for us. We descend, I think there were 4 of us this year, and we take up a lot of time and we're very needy, and she did a great job of making sure we had everything we needed when we were on site. And then calling our attention to this new building fund, building law. We have reached out to the Secretary of State's Audits Division to help us interpret what exactly the Senate meant with their new language, and how narrowly they're going to interpret it. I got a bit of good news last week in some of the language interpretation from one of the building code women, who now I think she'll probably be sorry I have her email address, because I have lots of questions for her, but I'm hoping that we can get some of this solved. And there appear to be changes that will affect every city, and then there appear to be changes that will only affect cities that are using contract building officials. So we're just trying to sort that out, and then we'll do as much client education as we can, as quickly as we can, once we have those answers. So I just talked a lot. Does anyone have any questions?
Corey, I had a question about accounting systems. So are you talking, a generic system like Peachtree, or something more sophisticated than that?
Thank you. That's a good question. Something a little more sophisticated than Peachtree that's meant for municipalities, because then it has the utility billing piece. So a Cassell is one of the very popular ones, and it's my personal favorite from a budgeting standpoint, because it's got this great budget module. Centerpoint is another one that is also good. It's also web-based, which is kind of cool for being able to allow remote work when it's needed. There are some, your utility billing software actually has a general ledger piece as well. I think it's Acela now. It's been bought and sold quite a bit. It used to be Springbrook. It is quite spendy and probably more products than you actually need, but it's a third one. Yeah.
Well, thank you. That's very helpful.
Of course.
Any other questions for Corey? Thank you, Corey, very much.
Thank you.
Sounds like things are going all in the right direction to me.
Yes, I would agree with that statement.
Correct.
And just a few things to add to that.
Yeah.
They've been tough on us. It's been a good relationship. We're learning a lot, and the time that they've been spending with our staff has been phenomenal. We are doing some things, such as we're going to be talking to you about the budgeting for that software program. We'll talk to you more about that. We've been in conversations about this for some time now. We also are interested in doing these trainings with our staff. We're going to be doing some things through the organization as well, and on our own. But Justine and I have spent some time talking quite a bit, and have a plan for next year. In part of that, or for this upcoming year, and part of that is also to look at the public contracting ordinance that we have, to make sure that that's updated. We've been talking about that for years, but haven't gotten around to it. So we're going to make that a priority as well, and then use that opportunity to change some of our operations here at City to work better with that contracting law.
Does that make requirement to have you solicit these 3 different bids?
For all sorts of different scenarios, yes.
There's different levels, small, intermediate.
Depending on how much it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And our system's a little different than what the state requires, so we want to make sure that we match that up. And then we also want to make sure we do something that it works for the city staff to be able to accomplish business without, having to get too much into the woods. But we're looking forward to making quite a few changes, and we've come so far this last.
Yeah, they can bog you down sometimes. It's frustrating.
It can be frustrating, and we gotta learn to get through it. Yeah. Yes. So thank you, and thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks again, Corey, and thanks for being there for us.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna move on then in our agenda. We have no ordinances or resolutions.
Are you going to ask for other visitors?
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question, right?
Yeah, yes. Can we take a 5-minute break? 5 minutes.
Yes. Consensus.
Thank you.
No problem.
The other-
Set a timer for you, Madam Mayor.
Pardon?
I set the timer for you. Oh, I guess there's plenty of clocks on the wall.
I'm afraid to ask.
I guess you gotta look up every once in a while, right? I got the information from Ms. Rita.
George,
I don't know.
I have a question. So is tomorrow's meeting going to be in person at City Hall, or is it going to be online?
I believe that's set up to be on Zoom combination. So there will be a person, I'm gonna have to talk to Justine, but I believe the person that we're talking to is going to be on Zoom and not here. But yeah, so it's gonna be a combination, similar to tonight.
So how long do you expect this meeting to last, tomorrow's meeting?
Well, it's Jeff Bowman's meeting, and if I know Jeff, he likes to get through those pretty quickly.
All right, thank you.
I understood it was going to run about 20 minutes.
Somebody said.
That's what I was told Jeff said.
Well, since the price of gas is going up, I think I'll just zoom in, not waste my car.
All right, and when appropriate, Councilor Fackrell, I have that information for you on the conditional use permit.
Oh, good. What is it? What were the conditions?
I better wait for Madam Mayor.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
think she was interested as well.
Okay.
We're good, and I do have the conditional use information when it's appropriate to answer Councilor Fackrell's question.
Okay. Let's finish up the visitors section then. Is there anyone on the call who would like to speak? If so, email Chad at chadsweet@cityofgearhart.com or use the raise hand function.
Nothing so far, Madam Mayor. We're clear.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie, for that reminder. We're gonna, before we do new business, Chad has the answer to Councilor Fackrell's question on the
Conditional use permit.
conditional use permit, yeah.
So thank you, Madam Mayor and Councilor Fackrell for the question. This was the conditional use permit meeting that we had last month with the Planning Commission, where they approved our plan for the play equipment that's going to go in the, what's it, the Centennial Central Trails End Park. And so their decision was to approve as planned, and they had some conditions. The conditions were a tsunami hazard overlay zone. Let's see. So we will not, we may not erect a structure for more than 300 people over there, which was never the heading that we were, but they again just wanted to clarify that we weren't going to put something large in there in the future or now. The applicant shall modify the plan to illustrate a water line and utility easement. That's to bring in landscaping water to that area, so we'll design an easement for that. Develop drainage grading plan to assure water runoff does not drain into adjoining property. We've been working on that. The city shall determine if an on-site public restrooms is required by state. If so, the site plan shall be modified to include the restroom. And right now, no, it does not. But in the future, Deerheart does need to speak about future restrooms here in Deerheart and potentially add one, but no, not currently. And we shall also modify the plans to illustrate the details of the ADA compliant paved parking stall on any street. Apply for an outdoor signage permit for the park sign. Add a plan for a full star or a 4-stall bicycle rack design and location for the site. They want to illustrate the stem wall around the equipment perimeter to retain the untreated cedar bark chips, and make sure that we add a garbage container near the equipment area, provide a wooden bench near the equipment for parents and friends. So those were the conditions that we were put on, all very much meetable. And so we're moving forward with that project in regards to starting to get some numbers together.
Thank you.
How many cars have you got scheduled to park there? I know you got an ADA, but how many other?
None.
I think that's it.
Just an ADA?
Just the ADA on this.
Okay.
And that was to help, their concern was to kind of create a separation between the residential neighborhood and that area, not creating parking. We also felt for now, we'll monitor the situation, but we felt that we had enough parking up on Pacific Way. And future path to make that easier will also be helpful.
Okay.
Path from Pacific Way into the park.
Right, okay. Is that a set of stairs down through the middle of Centennial Trails and Park?
Central, yeah.
It just rolls around the top.
It'll have to be ADA, so we'll have to figure it out. But I think we're coming up with a good name here.
Okay, BCC. All right. Next, we have planning commissioner appointment. And I would like to nominate Judy Schechter to the planning commission. She did her interview in 2019, had, to my recollection, a very good interview. And at that time, the 2 incumbent commissioners were reappointed. So she was not appointed at that time. We need to take a vote. Is there a, I guess I made the motion.
A second?
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I remember her interview from that time, and she really did well. She stood out.
I guess I would just say I wasn't privy to her interview, so I'm not sure specifically your comments on the questions, but take your word for it.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So that motion carries. Judy, if you're on the call, congratulations.
I am here.
Oh, there she is.
There you are. Congratulations then.
Thank you.
And she's sworn in, is she swearing at?
Yeah, she'll just come into the planning commission.
In April now.
Correct.
Yeah. And next we have approved the budget calendar. Chad, do you want to go over the staff report?
Yes, please, Mayor. And Council, the Oregon Department of Revenue recommends the city prepare a budget calendar. The calendar maps out all the steps that must occur to legally adopt a budget and allows you to plan for enough time to successfully adopt the budget by June 30. Staff has scheduled all notices and meetings to accommodate the council's request not to adopt the budget using the emergency clause. The FY 22-23 budget will be approved via resolution. Council options: make a motion to approve the budget calendar. 2, make changes to the budget calendar and motion to approve as amended. Staff recommends that we approve the calendar as is. The city treasurer, Justine Hill, has already been appointed the budget officer. Adopting by resolution happens with only one meeting and takes effect immediately. Legal analysis, there's none at the moment. Is there any questions?
Our fiscal year ends June 30th.
Yes. Yes.
Is that just always been the way it?
Yeah, city budgeting and state budgeting, June 30th. It's not fiscal year. So
And
some challenges.
I move that we adopt the city budget plan as submitted.
I second it.
Rita got it.
Rita got it. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Next, we have Gearhart Cleanup Day. Chad?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In honor of Earth Day 2022, which is on April 22, city staff is requesting permission to hold the Gearhart Free Cleanup Day on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. Staff proposes ecology deliver to the area at City Hall 4 20-yard drop boxes for trash and 2 3-yard drop boxes for recycling electronics. And of note, that is not hazardous material. There would not be a hazardous material drop box at this time. The boxes would be available for residents of Gearhart dump trash at no cost from 8 to 11. City staff will provide some staff members to help with that. There's been some changes in the contracting and the way that Recology calculates this, but what they've been telling us is that generally we will be paying approximately the same amount as we have over the years. And if there is a little change due to a successful a day, then we may pay a little bit more, but I'm not concerned. So it'll be somewhere in the 900 range. We don't see much of an increase there. So we would recommend that the council approve that we allow cleanup day.
So we will have a scrap metal drop box.
No, it's not dedicated to scrap metal. It's not dedicated for that recycling. It's either the 3 are for garbage, and then the other 2 are for electrical.
Okay.
But
I see, okay, I see.
So do you want a motion there, or do you want to just say consensus?
Says council resolves. We want to do this, right?
Yeah.
We want to do this.
Yes,
Yep, let's do
I
it.
think it's good. Yeah,
I resolve.
all right, move forward. And finally, bicycles on the ridge path. I've been looking at the ordinance 467, which was an older ordinance that when the ordinances were updated in 1994, this one was not made part of the current ordinances. It's specific to the ridge path, and it is specific to it being a footpath. And the prohibition is for horses. And also some very specific pieces about signage, just to keep people with horses off the ridge path and just on the city streets or bridle paths. It's all we have to have as a basis for some deliberations on whether or not we want to have bicycles on the ridge path. And I'm concerned as well a little bit, and maybe Peter can talk about, is there any ADA concerns with the footpath that we need to be considering?
Well, I think that inherent in that footpath would be that it would also be someone in a wheelchair would also be able to to utilize it. I actually did want to weigh in on this one because I do have some concerns about modifying it to allow bicycles. And that's a couple of things. One is that when we solicited donations, both of volunteers' time and funds for this project, it was that it be a pedestrian path for walking. And then the second, which gives me more pause because it's more of a legal liability, is that we now have testimony that it creates a dangerous condition, both about bicyclist pedestrian potential conflicts, which you can imagine given how narrow the path is in some areas, and also that the bikes compromise the integrity of the trail in ways that make it more difficult for foot pedestrians to utilize it, which would also make it more difficult for someone in a wheelchair to access the trail, because if you have someone mountain biking through it at a higher rate of speed, that does things to trails that foot traffic or wheelchair traffic don't. So I think that you can have trails that are less. We strive for ADA compliance with a bark dust trail or a natural trail. That's not always possible. But as far as and to Mr. T's public comment, which I think is accurate, in the event that there is an incident where a pedestrian is hit by a cyclist, having bicycle mountain biking or biking banned on it, I think it makes it clear cut. The bicyclist should avoid pedestrians. That's how it works. But putting them on notice that it's not allowed, I think would help us as far as our potential liability. I mean, we have a lot of immunity, but if we're aware of a dangerous condition, then we're in court making all those arguments, and I always prefer to stay out of court. It makes it clear to cyclists that that wouldn't be allowed in the event that you decide to do it. So I think that ultimately, it's the vision and values of Gerhardt, and those are your determinations to make, not mine. But from a liability standpoint, there are, in my mind, multiple reasons why this might be something that you would want to move forward with. And I understand enforceability could be an issue going forward because we have limited resources. But again, part of this is providing everyone with notice, even if there aren't a ton of citations, because our police don't have the capacity.
Well, and my understanding is that having an actual ordinance, as opposed to just what's in that plan, does help with enforcement.
Right, and if that's something that you guys indicate to staff you want to move forward with, then that's also something we would want to clarify in that Parks Master Plan, because we would want consistency. To the extent we can have consistency in all of our documents, that's what we want.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we direct staff to come up with an ordinance banning any kind of bike on the ridge path, and that any corrections in our Parks Master Plan be done by the planner to show that we're banning any kind of bicycle, motorized or human powered, from the ridge path.
I'd like to amend your motion and just say it should say horses prohibited as well,
Yes,
because of the historical nature.
thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, what was your amendment?
that it should also include no horses prohibited on the ridge path, which is part of the more original document, ordinance 467.
Okay, thanks. That makes sense.
I need a second
Whoop, I'll second that.
as amended.
Yes, as amended.
Thank you.
Further discussion by the council?
I'd like to ask, has there been any reported incidents of bicycle hitting people recently? Is this?
You have Carol Lucas with.
Carol
Yes,
Lucas.
Carol just testified a little while ago that she's encountered bicycles and it's been dangerous.
Can I speak now?
Go ahead, Carol.
Was that a yes?
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, it's very dangerous both to the people that are walking and to the bicyclists. Part of the thing is that the roads used to be gravel, so people didn't drive that fast on them, but now they're driving faster and the bicyclists shoot across the intersections without looking right or left. I've thought about getting a video of it, but I never have. On my particular street, the path goes up along and then it dips down to the road and then it goes up again to where the ridge is. And so the bicyclists come along and they pick up speed to make it down and up that thing. And when the weather gets dry and the sand starts to get loose, they go even faster. And I don't want to have to call 911 again. I had to do that once for a little girl that was hit out there on the road by a truck that was moving very slowly. And luckily, she was not seriously hurt, but it sure was close. And I did not like hearing it. And I did not like hearing her scream and yell. And I know that time that I caught my mother out on the path as a bicyclist came speeding down the path, and she wasn't that alert at the time. She just heard the noise and she started to step back and lost her balance, and I caught her and the bicycle went by. It's dangerous. Thank you.
So the vehicle, so it was the one incident, mother, was the vehicles that she was concerned about mostly, I guess. I'm just, I've lived here, well, most recent past last 5 years, but growing up here, I don't ever remember bicycles being an issue on the ridge path. And over the last 5 years that I've moved back, I don't even remember ever seeing like be a bicycle on the ridge path. And so I'm just wondering if we're making an issue out of something that's not.
But what my most recently what got me thinking about this is when it snowed, there were bike tracks observed on the ridge path in the snow. And that very same week, the arch tree in the north ridge path was cut. And someone, I don't know who did it, someone on a bicycle may have done it though, because the arch was right at about 5 foot tall. It would be hard to get by that without getting off your bicycle.
Yeah.
I don't know, but definitely I observed wide tires.
Yeah. I mean, also to make, more awareness of the ridge path itself, it is a 25-foot wide easement. If we are concerned about traffic and sharing, it could be a point of concern that we clear some vegetation to allow more clear pathways. If there's, you can see ahead, people coming by, or more room for people to scoot over in case there is a bike coming by. I don't know, It's hard to think about growing up here, riding my bike on the ridge path. My kids growing up here, am I not gonna be able to ever have a seat in riding his little tricycle down the ridge path at some point? So those are my concerns.
Understood. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Okay.
4-1. And council concerns, Terry Smith.
My only concern is what the auditor said about contract law, and I think we're going to be heading toward fixing that problem right away.
Austin.
No concerns for me.
Rita?
I don't have any concerns. I have some comments about the park master plan, but they're really picky and stupid. So I'll just text you tomorrow. Other than that, I have no concerns.
And Brent?
Yeah, I'd like to speak. I have some concerns regarding the ongoing issues of misinformation on social media. And I'd like to give a couple of examples. There was a quote about the property tax rate per $1,000 of home valuation has moved from $1.05 to a new upward range of $1.15 to $2.28. Wow. And it goes on. There's was talking about our last meeting. It says some form of announcement was made that the Gerhardt Volunteer Fire, through its political action group, will raise money towards the hopeful new fire station. Goes on, Sweet was canceled due to his serving on the Gerhardt Volunteer Fire Department. He had to be very careful of his involvement. This confirms that the city attorney sees a conflict with Sweet being a city employee and acting in the capacity with Gerhardt Volunteer Fire. Now, these are issues that we've addressed time and time again, and they still keep showing up. I've been blocked from posting on A Million Friends where these quotes happen to have been made. And it's clear that they do not want any voice contrary to what their position is. And I don't know what we do about it other than keep hammering it in our own social media forums, but there's people that don't look at ours and they only look at the people who are opposed to what the direction the city's moving in.
In the interest of putting out accurate information to anyone that's watching, there are special rules that apply to Chad, and it has nothing to do with his work as a volunteer firefighter, and it has nothing to do with his work as city manager. It's because he's our city's election official. Every city has one. There's special rules that apply to them universally across the state. And this speech that to the extent it was a speech, the comment that I made to Chad is the comment that I make to the elections official in every government that I represent, that they need to be extremely careful about, any political activity because of those duties. So it has nothing to do with volunteer firefighting.
Yes. And our employees have gotten the training, and we're putting out, the city employees are putting out objective, impartial information that has been verified by the Secretary of State, not endorsing any political vote one way or another. And it's just frustrating. So that's my concern. Thanks for indulging me.
Thank you, Brent. I don't see any other business. Yeah.
Nothing left on the agenda, and I think you covered all of the city councilors, Madam Mayor.
So I do have one question, if we could circle back to the parks plan. I noticed typos and that sort of thing, and grammatical things like putting parentheses around this Citizens Advisory Committee. There's different references because one group was an ad hoc committee to develop the plan, but it's being called a Citizens Advisory Group, which is also the name of a group going forward to go out and look for. I mean, there needs to be some differentiation between those two, because I believe that the group that did the plan considers their work done, even though some of them might want to be on this other group. But, and then just the typos and things, do you want us to tell you, or will you guys just clean all that up? Because mine is like riddled with things.
A little of both. I'd love to get a copy of your notes. And then that way we can go ahead and take care of a lot of the easy stuff. When it comes down to making changes to any of the policies and things like that, with grammatical changes, commas and things can mean things. So we'll be very careful in making sure not to change the intent with any of the issues that we have in there. But if you have your sheet and you'd like to bring it in, we'll take a photocopy. We can take it, that would be very helpful. And then we'll continue to make little improvements on the grammatical side of things ourselves as well.
If we were to do that, some tip one, if we were to do that, is there a timeline that you need in order for us to get a final copy ahead of that March 29th meeting?
Yeah, we're gonna probably need that copy at least. It would be nice to have it 2 weeks prior to that meeting.
2 weeks prior?
Mm-hmm.
So Mayor, my questions that I was going to ask you were all about the Citizens Action Committee. So you have probably already covered that in your notes. So there you have it.
And just so that the council knows, so like the planning commission, we will probably spend most of our time on the policy section. But just think about that, we're going to work through those one at a time. And I want each counselor to weigh in as we go through each section so that we're not going back and forth too much. So we'll plan on doing it that way.
Sounds good.
Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn. So second.
It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? City council meeting closed.
Aye.
Over.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.